it's like what you're saying is like a simplification
Uh-huh.
instead of a lot of what you'll find out there is, well, you need to do this and you need to do this, and an overwhelming amount of information on all these different pathways that people say work, which is all like more work to
Exactly.
even to think about what's right for me and then to try a new thing.
Right.
When really you're saying like simplify it.
Yes.
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Unlock Potential. I'm Brian Delaney. Our focus this season is fitness. I'll be joined by Dr. Corey Duvall, who's going to guide us through his protocol for getting into your best shape so we can live our best lives and serve others well.
Hello and welcome back to Season 2 of Unlock Potential. This is episode 39. We just watched Dr. Chelsea Rae move through a workout earlier this morning, and now we're going to get some deeper insight into her experience moving through her body while following the Stay Active method, what life was like before that, and how she's managed a transition in life, becoming pregnant and growing a sweet little baby.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for joining us, Chelsea Rae.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to talk about this because I imagine that a lot of people like me had a lot of misconceptions around working out, being active, being strong, and also being a woman, like encyclical, and then all the different changes that happen. And I'm excited to get into that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's start maybe at the beginning of our journey together. You're a doctor of chiropractic, as am I.
Mm-hmm.
You had some experience with off-brand CrossFit style exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you share a little bit what that experience was like and then what you've learned in your early stages of us working together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would find CrossFit gyms. I was attracted to CrossFit because I liked the functionality of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I lived a few different places in my 20s. So I would try a few gyms.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was a lot of long workouts at as high of an intensity as I could do was like the encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
As much as you can lift, as fast as you can lift it, as long as you can lift it.
Right.
And just go as hard as you can until you like, if you didn't drop on the floor after, like you probably didn't work out hard enough.
Uh-huh.
That was kind of the mentality of it. And that didn't leave any room for like, what week of your cycle are you in? Or like, what injuries do you have? Or what weak spots do you have in your body? Like there wasn't like a personalized, like any personalization that happened, like I had to do that for myself.
Got it.
And I noticed a lot of injuries happening because I had a lot of education. So I was able to know how to personalize my stuff, but I
Yeah.
don't think most people have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in a group setting.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of aware of what the biomechanics are. So you're trying to alter your own, but then you're observing other people struggling. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yeah. I also struggled too. And yeah, I did witness like injuries.
Yeah.
Happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you said something appealed to you, the functional nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
Go into that a little more.
I liked full body movements.
Uh-huh.
So like taking the weight from the ground all the way over my head. I liked using, because I know that that's different than like if I go to a gym and I'm on a machine and I'm doing some activity that I would never do in everyday life.
Right.
Like laying on your back and doing the leg press thing like that. Like
Yeah.
it never happens in
Right.
life.
Uh-huh.
Even if it might isolate a muscle really well. And also I didn't find like weightlifting in the gym as fun.
Got it.
And I also like doing things with other people. I like
Right.
doing like things in a group. However, like the cost of that was like, it wasn't personalized.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you enjoyed weightlifting, but you didn't want to tell yourself what to do. You didn't want to put the time into like planning out what it was you were going to do. So you got attracted to the group classes because you got to follow along with a program that was pre-designed,
Mm-hmm.
but then you had trouble personalizing it. because you could tell that something was leading you off path a little
Mm-hmm.
bit.
I was also attracted, yeah, that's true. All of that you said. I was also attracted to the intensity of the CrossFit workouts. I really
Uh-huh.
liked that. I really liked the feeling of like, wow, I did all of these pull-ups. I had no idea I could do that at all. I had no idea I could push myself that far. And I loved getting high after the workout, like off endorphins and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I loved that feeling. But later I learned with you that there are costs to working that hard, that
Yeah.
long,
Yeah.
and that you can get that feeling easier and
Uh-huh.
in a way that's like isn't so expensive to the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that story of like, oh, the rush of endorphins, and I feel fantastic afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And what people don't realize is that physiologically, there's not a whole lot of difference between super intense, long duration exercise and taking bumps of cocaine. It's stimulating the stress response to a really high level, and we feel
Mm.
fantastic, but the
Mm.
cost on the body is really high. And what we
Mm.
need to do is adjust that dosage.
Yeah.
And when we adjust that dosage, then we get sustained, good, steady feelings, as opposed to, I feel incredible, and then a hangover for 2 days, and you got to go in and get that
Yeah.
next hit.
Yeah.
So, what
Makes
were
a lot of
some of the
sense.
things you were experiencing? You didn't stick with those programs. You
Mm-hmm.
decided, hey, I'm going to try this other method, this other style of exercise. What
Uh-huh.
were the things you found that pushed you in that direction?
Yeah. Well, my now husband was working out with you,
Right.
Brian,
Yes.
and he was like, a couple times was like, you should try this thing. He has this thing that tells you your body composition and all these things. And he knew I was doing these really hard workouts. And I think he could see like something's off here. And so he invited me in. And you had said something that like, I was like, okay. Like, and you said something along the lines of like, that working out that long actually spiked my cortisol and
Uh-huh.
was actually causing me to feel more tired in my everyday life, needing coffee, taxing my adrenals, and causing weight gain. And
Right.
that is what I was experiencing.
Right.
I weighed like 15 pounds more than what I now know is natural for me.
Uh-huh.
And I just felt puffy. Like my skin I was like kind of red, had inflammation. And I just felt like I had this layer of like fat and inflammation that like didn't make sense for how I was eating and how I was working out. I thought I shouldn't have this.
Right.
And you said that, I was like, well, that makes every bit of sense. And you had said something about like my body was acting like thinking like I was in a war or something. And
Uh-huh.
I thought like that is the feeling
That
that I have
resonated.
right now. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I thought like, well, if I still get to if I still get to reach my potential
Uh-huh.
and there's another way, like great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so to kind of loop everybody else in here, you came in for a consult, gosh, it was maybe like 9 months or a year before you actually started. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's when I said, here are some things we see on your body composition scan. And it's possible that the elevated intensity and duration could be increasing those things over time. Then you eventually started, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when we saw those things trend downward.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like 6 weeks to a beach body. It was
Mhm.
just cycle after cycle, season after season.
Yeah.
The tides just changed.
Like I barely noticed it.
Mm-hmm.
I barely noticed it happening. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm at a goal weight that I always could sense, like I know what weight my body is happiest at.
Uh-huh.
And not like I wanted to necessarily just lose weight just for like aesthetics, but I felt like like it was just extra. Like it didn't feel like me.
Right.
And then I just sort of arrived without trying
Yeah.
is how it happened. Yeah.
So war is unrelenting
Mm-hmm.
physical, mental, and emotional stress.
Mm-hmm.
And so in those high intensity, long duration workouts, our brain can take us places that our body doesn't necessarily want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can push and get 40 minutes instead of 45 minutes. I can push and get
Mm-hmm.
600 reps instead of 550.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we do that too often for too long, our body, all it knows is that we're losing the battle. If we were winning the battle, we'd make a strike and then we would stand proud for a moment. When we were ready, we would make another strike. But when we're losing the battle, when we're losing the war, I'm suffering and hurting and still going. I'm getting slower, but trying more because you're trying to get away from all of that. And so you step in and now you start to win these battles. And as you win these battles, what you feel is comfort. What you feel is ease in your body. And then eventually you look down and you go, oh, the extra that my body had been putting off for later because we're losing the war now starts to release.
That makes so much sense. Yeah.
It's been really inspiring to watch
Yeah.
you just steadily and consistently listening to yourself. One story came to mind. We were sitting on the ground one day and you said, hey, I'm experiencing some thyroid symptoms. And what do you think about my appetite and what I should eat to help those symptoms? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to share a little bit about what you were
Yeah.
experiencing going into that and what you took away from it?
Yeah. I'm remembering the moment. I think it was a couple of years ago, and my hair was thinning.
That's
And
right.
that had happened before.
Yep.
Like that had happened like 10 years before that. And my hair was thinning a little bit, and I was feeling cold at times when it didn't make sense for me to feel cold.
Yeah.
And I thought, like something's off here. And my weight wasn't a problem at that time, but it was like I could feel the faintness, and I was very tired, and I could feel and when I would stand up in the limber test, I was lightheaded. Like those were some, and I would see like kind of like black spots a little bit, and I thought like this isn't right. And I had read something about thyroid, adrenal stuff that encouraged eating really regularly, eating in the morning, eating consistently, high fat, high protein, which was pretty much how I was eating, but I wasn't normally hungry until after my workout. So I would like fast in the morning, maybe just have like coffee and work out and then eat after that. That was kind of my normal rhythm at that time. And so I was reading these things and I thought, I'm going to try eating before my workout and see if that helps. And it didn't. And it just felt like I was like making myself eat.
Yeah.
And so we had talked about food, and you had said something so simple. I'm kind of embarrassed that like I didn't live this way before, but you said, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, keep going like that.
Yeah.
And if you can't feel your appetite, and this is a big thing for me, and this is a big part of what I needed, this is the tune-in piece. You were like, if you can't feel your appetite, allow your breath to expand. You said like tune into your breath, tune back into your body, give yourself a moment to like connect. And that was a big game changer for me, because then I could actually feel my appetite, and I wasn't taking time to do that until I was really hungry. It would just like hit. I'd be like, whoa, I'm starving. And so taking that moment and then just eating when I'm hungry, what I'm hungry for, as much as I'm hungry for, that was really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have these habits, and the habits can be increased stress levels for prolonged period of time. You were getting some of that from your exercise. And when you changed your exercise, you found that those symptoms started to wane. But the body works in tides. It works in seasons. It works in cycles. And so it gave you the opportunity to start to notice again, ooh, my stress levels are a little high because my hair is not growing as much. My stress levels are a little high, and my body's trying to conserve energy by reducing my temperature. And when it reduces hair production and when it reduces body temperature, you start to get to notice those things. You have two choices at that point. One, lower your stress level, which is not about cutting things out of your life, but adding to. And the adding to is the breath. When we exhale more completely, and then that breath comes in and we pause with an open airway, that is the dimmer switch to our stress response at the base of our brainstem. So when you notice, oh, my hair is thinning, that's a sign of stress. We don't cut something out. We add awareness of a slower breath. The stress starts to dial down. When you start to notice, oh, my temperature is cold, we add expanded breath that calms the body. And from that more calm state, you become super aware of what you're hungry for and when you're hungry for it. You don't have to add time measuring how much food you're eating. You don't have to add time planning exactly what you're going to eat when you're going to eat it. You get to show up to the moment and go, I'm hungry for more meat right now. My body needs that. I'm hungry for more vegetables right now. My body needs that. And you get to adjust accordingly.
It's like what you're saying is like a simplification
Uh-huh.
instead of a lot of what you'll find out there is, well, you need to do this and you need to do this, and an overwhelming amount of information on all these different pathways that people say work, which is all like more work to even to think about what's right for me and then to try a new thing.
Right.
When really you're saying like simplify it.
Yes. Yeah,
Just
very
the way
well put.
through that.
I like thinking about complication versus complexity. And complication is getting us more in our mind, and we get confused when we do that. Complex is more an underlying, oh, there's a lot of stuff that I don't need to know. I just need the signal to be strong enough. And that signal arrives as I'm calm. And then I get to follow the simplicity of the signal, and everything that's complex takes care of itself. So every piece of diet advice that I found applies to some people in some situations.
Exactly.
And it probably applies to every people at certain phases of their life.
Yeah.
But to know exactly what phase you're in and when you're going to shift out, that's like way too much measuring and time and additional stress trying to figure it out. We calm ourselves, and then it's super easy to navigate.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So now you're eating for two.
Yeah.
But you're calming yourself and you're listening. And the baby's saying, Mom, this is what we need.
Totally.
And your body's saying, Mom, this is what we need. And you get to pay attention to both of those.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's working exactly like that. People have asked me, I think a fun question people like to ask is like, are you having any weird cravings? And mostly no. But it's every day I know what I need. Like I will crave salmon. I will crave eating frequently, small meals, or I will crave red meat or cheese. And when I listen to my midwife and she's like, these are the things you want to be sure you're eating, I'm like, great, I'm eating all those things. It's been very simple, very clear every single day. And that has been like so easy.
Awesome.
So easy. Yeah. Oh, a funny craving I did have though was for gummy bears. And why do I want gummy bears? And I looked at the ingredients of gummy bears and it was beef gelatin and sugar. So I bought some organic gummy bears.
Okay.
For fun. And I also added bone broth to my diet to make sure I'm getting like the collagen and yeah, the body's so brilliant the way that works.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So there were things in the gummy bears that your body needed. And that was your awareness level.
And somehow my body knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I try not to tell people, don't eat this and don't eat that, but to approach it with that calm, expanded breath. What you need will smell good.
Yep.
It will taste good.
Mm-hmm.
It will feel good, and then it'll leave good.
Yeah.
And that whole process helps us get the dosage of gummy bears
Mm-hmm.
that gets the beef gelatin that your body needed or the carbohydrates that your body needed.
Mm-hmm.
If you do too much, or there's an extra thing in the gummy bears that you don't need, you'll be aware that it doesn't feel good and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't leave good.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're aware of that, you'll think about, oh, the gummy bears have this other thing. You don't even need to know it. Your body just won't be hungry for those.
Yeah.
Or if there's nothing extra added, you're just hungry for those.
Yeah. Yeah. And the food has tasted better. I have loved eating for two.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
been really great.
Appetite is the best spice.
It is. Oh my gosh, it tastes great. I've loved eating. Um, and I have gained a little more weight. I've gained 30 pounds so far, and I still have like 8 more weeks. And the last 8 weeks, there's a lot of growth, like
Uh-huh.
physical growth that happens. And it's like, I think like trusting my tune-in has helped me not worry about that at all. Like I
Exactly.
do not care that I've gained a little more weight than is usual. What I felt about that was like, because I think the standard is 25 to 30 pounds for the whole pregnancy. But I thought I had it to gain because when I got pregnant, my body fat percentage was like 16% or 17%. And my body was
Uh-huh.
really happy and fine with that when I wasn't having a baby.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought, like this is perfect. Like this is
Uh-huh.
what I need or wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
Yeah. So,
So I think what I'm just hearing is that mentally you're thinking to yourself, maybe I'm gaining more than what the average does.
uh-huh.
But when you tune into your body was like, we might have been a little low early on. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
going to gain a little bit more in order to hit that sweet spot.
Yeah, and practicing the tuning into my body,
Uh-huh.
practicing trusting my appetite made that like not an issue that I was stressed about
Yeah.
because I had been trusting my body before that, so that made
You
it
had that
easier.
practice going
Yeah.
into it. That's wonderful.
Totally.
Now, I've coached a dozen women through pregnancy. Some have done easier, steadier, longer work. Some have had cycles where they hit personal bests of an overhead squat a week before they gave birth.
Wow.
And they were all just in their different states, all of them listening to what their body was ready for in those moments,
Mm-hmm.
all with very successful, healthy babies, easy transitions after pregnancy, restoring all of that. Have you heard any myths that were suggested to you that checking into your body suggested otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been comfortable shifting that yourself?
Mm-hmm. One expectation, something I've noticed about pregnancy is a lot of expectations being placed on me of like what was someone else's experience, like this is going to be your experience. But I think pregnancy is one of the most mysterious and individualized things that happen. So it's been a good opportunity to like always like listen to myself and trust my own experience first.
Yes.
And one of those things was like expecting me to not lift weights, expecting me to not work out and like take it easy was kind of like because people who are close with me, they like know that I enjoy working out
Uh-huh.
and that I'm very active. And that's been a part of my life since I was a child. Like I've never dropped my activity levels really. And so getting pregnant, I didn't plan to drop it. I planned to listen,
Uh-huh.
like you're saying. And people like told me like, don't lift weights. Like someone did say like, just, you're not lifting weights, are you? Like they said that. I said, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Because I think that they're super well intentioned. And what I've been able to develop and cultivate that I think that might not have been in people's minds and might not be the cultural norm is like a deep knowing of what I need and a trust of my own body. And that's actually the trust of the body that's needed to give birth.
Yeah.
So I wasn't about to like let that go right now. Like this is not the moment to do what other people tell me to do.
Yeah.
And so I continued to work out with that deep listening. And it really did vary through the whole week to week, was really different. And walking in here, it was a brand new practice walking in here, not knowing what it was going to be like, when typically I was pretty consistent before that.
Mhm.
So I had to be very curious and really listen. Is today an adaptable day? Or even, and not even just the whole day, like I could start with adaptability and end up with strong work and feel amazing.
Mhm.
And not knowing what weight do I lift. I don't want to assume that it's the same weight before, because everything is
Exactly.
different.
Yeah.
And so like being able to really listen, and I have done the full range, but for me personally, I haven't wanted to like really push the edges of my strengths, because that's been my assignment in pregnancy personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, the myth was like people thinking like, take it easy. And it's very sweet. People do a lot of things for me now physically. Like if there's a chair that needs to be moved or like a bag that needs to be carried, I've traveled a lot. They want to do it for me, which is very kind and sweet. And I deeply appreciate not having to do the work.
Uh-huh.
And I've had to find ways to move because everyone wants to do things for me.
Yeah.
So this has been like really vital
Yeah.
to come in here. And the important thing is choosing to work and not having to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I heard two main things in that explanation that I think are super important.
Mm-hmm.
That the advice that people gave you was well-intentioned,
Mm-hmm.
but it was based on their preconceived notions, either their experience or things that you've heard.
Mm-hmm.
So they said don't lift weights because they have concern for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that concern is beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
but to tell you exactly what to do is probably less beneficial than saying, be cautious. Because the next thing I heard is that the solution to overdoing is doing the right amount. Sometimes people overdo and then they try to underdo.
Yeah.
So you feel capable. Here comes the rain.
I
We'll
love
try to
this.
finish up this episode before it gets too loud. If you had a history of overdoing,
Yes.
it's important to allow yourself to feel the right amount. And you did a good job of that coming into it. But maybe some of those recommendations had seen you overdo in the past,
Maybe.
or they
Mm-hmm.
themselves had overdone in the past
Mm-hmm.
and offered you a counterbalance to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of strength in you to say, oh, I'm not going to underdo. I'm going to hold the center. I'm going to hold the
Mm-hmm.
awareness of what my body needs and let myself ride that edge appropriately. That's super inspiring.
Well said. Thank you.
So the first thing, they're going to offer you concern. And the
Mhm.
second thing is they might say underdo as a way to help you, but you want to find that center.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I think people expected and of me or like a myth that I had heard about pregnancy was that I wouldn't feel good, that I would feel sick or nauseous. The number of times people ask me, are you nauseous? And I thought, it makes me sad that that's expected. For women, that's our reality. That it's very common. It's very common. And some people, like, my heart goes out to them,
Yeah.
how intense what they have to go through to have a baby.
Yeah.
But that I would feel sick, that I would feel also structurally not well. And that has really not been my experience. I'm really grateful. I have felt very good. I'd never had nausea. I never had morning sickness. I did go through some physical pain with certain movements for a few weeks.
Uh-huh.
And like that was my body changing.
Yeah.
That was my body changing, and it was guiding me like, hey, like almost like my body was saying, right now we're changing. Don't pick anything up for for a minute, just, or at least like in the mornings. That's
Yeah.
when it was happening.
Yeah.
So that was my real experience versus like what I was told to experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were entering a new season, and the way you had done things, which was the way your brain was programmed to move your body,
Mm-hmm.
needed to change.
Mm-hmm.
And when we listen to that, it happens easily. When we feel a little resistance and we try to make it happen, the signals get stronger. We
Mm-hmm.
experience that as pain.
Mm-hmm.
So you had some old ways of doing things,
Mm-hmm.
and that connection between your mind and body just guided you out of that over that time.
Yeah.
And today you're sitting to standing with more than what your baby is going to weigh after you
Yeah.
give birth.
Yeah.
Weightlifting is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Mm.
It's been fun to watch your journey so far. Any last words of advice for women about to get pregnant, in the middle of pregnancy, or just looking to help their bodies feel a little healthier?
This is my first baby. So my experience extends up to 7.5 months of pregnancy. That's as far as my experience goes. I've also guided other women through pregnancy in my work, and my midwife said something that's really resonating with me. She's got a ton of experience, and what she said was, everything that happens from the moment you get pregnant is preparing you to be a parent. Everything that happens is preparing you, you physically, emotionally, mentally, all of that. And so, what's been most important for me is my trusting and listening, like every step of the way, and knowing that what I do right now in the gym, what I do this morning in the gym, is helping my birth. And it's helping my postpartum. And it's helping my, like, when they're 2 and maybe I get pregnant again. Like, it's like so, like, every workout I do now is not about like the reps or the weight or the performance that is of today, but it's me navigating and living and owning my body right now, and it will help forever.
Yes.
Like every workout I'm doing. Like
So perfect.
that's my experience of it. And then what my midwife shared, like, really, like, affirmed that. So it's an investment.
Investment
Yeah.
is a beautiful word.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about finding that edge today, the combination of what you want and what you need
Mm-hmm.
and what your body is guiding you towards in that long run.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing great work to increase that connection. You're not doing too little, you're not doing too much. You're finding that edge and
Mhm.
following each of those cycles.
Yeah. Thank you.
Super inspiring.
Yeah.
Maybe in a year or two, we'll have another
Revisit.
episode.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Chelsea Rae, you're a doctor of chiropractic.
Mm-hmm.
Your husband Brian is as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to give a little shout out where people can reach out to you and kind of understand your work?
Sure. Yeah. And I feel like our work is so complementary.
Most definitely.
I love the two of them together. Yeah, our practice, and we've actually developed a methodology as well that's unique from the limitations that we found that were out there too. It's called Genius Frequency.
Mhm.
And so a good place to find us is on Instagram at Genius Frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been experiencing that for, I think, 8 years now.
Yeah.
And the sessions that I go through are just deeply meditative and help enhance my awareness of those subtle little body shifts. I use them in the gym, and I have the opportunity to practice them
Mm-hmm.
nearly weekly with y'all.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. It really I feel it enhances the baseline that I show up to life to.
yes,
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
So I show up here better. And this is like this is the active outer, and then that's more of like the inner. They work together really well.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
The inner awareness and the outer action.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, everybody. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Unlock Potential. Follow us across all socials at Unlock Potential 360 and visit our website at unlockpotential360.com to shop our gear and see what's coming up next.
The information and views expressed by our host or guests on the Unlock Potential podcast are their own, and not a substitute for professional medical or fitness advice. Always consult with qualified healthcare or fitness professionals before starting any new exercise program or making changes to your current routine.